I've always been the odd one out in my family. Not because I caused trouble or acted out, but because I refused to follow the traditional path that was laid out for me. You see, in my family, success is measured in very specific ways: doctor, lawyer, engineer. If you're not one of those three, well, in their eyes, you must be struggling. I chose a different path. I work in digital marketing. More specifically, I'm a creative director for a growing tech company. It's a role I worked hard for, starting from an intern position in a cramped office with bad lighting and lukewarm vending machine coffee. I put in long nights and countless weekends learning, creating, and finding ways to stand out. Today, I lead a team, manage big projects, and have a hand in making decisions that affect millions of people. But to my family? To them, I play around with a computer all day or have a side hustle. This year's family gathering felt like any other. Everyone was there: uncles, aunts, cousins, the whole lot. The conversation started like it always did. "Are you still doing that online thing?" asked Uncle Mark, leaning in with a smirk. "Still making videos for a living," chimed in my cousin, Kelly. "Have you thought about a serious career?" "You're too smart to waste your time online," added Aunt Sarah, shaking her head. Each comment felt like a tiny cut. Not deep enough to kill, but sharp enough to sting every time. I smiled and shrugged, brushing it off like I always do. What else can I say? To them, unless I wear a suit every morning and carry a briefcase, I must be a kid playing in the shallow end of the professional world. But this year felt different. This year, I felt tired. Not just tired of the remarks, tired of pretending they didn't matter. What no one knew was that I had invited my boss, David, to swing by for a drink. He was in town, we had a big campaign coming up, and he was interested in getting a sense of my world beyond work. I had warned him about my family. We laughed about it, and he promised to play along. About an hour into the gathering, after countless jabs about my side hustle and hobby, it happened. My cousin Mark spoke loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Maybe one day, you'll grow up and get a real job. Someone needs to teach you how the real world works." He winked and turned to the rest of the family, making sure they caught the joke. The room erupted in laughter. Not an uproar, a low, knowing chuckle that felt like a slap across the face. I smiled. Not because I found it funny, but because I knew what was coming. Right then, the doorbell rang. I stood, brushing off my shirt, and walked to the door. And there he was, David. The man who started the company I worked for. The man who trusted me to lead multi-million-dollar projects. The man I had learned more from in the past 5 years than I had learned from any of these relatives in a lifetime. "Hey," I said, shaking his hand. "Come in. Thanks for stopping by." "Of course," David replied, smiling. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." As I led him into the living room, the room grew quiet. Everyone was trying to place him. In a family like mine, where status is measured by titles, expensive cars, and long careers, a confident man like David doesn't go unnoticed. "Everyone," I announced, "this is my boss, David. David, this is my family." He waved, offered a warm smile, and started shaking hands. "Nice to meet all of you." Then came the moment I had hoped for and also feared. Someone asked David, "So, what do you do?" He smiled and said, "I run the company where he works. To be honest, he's one of the best we've got. Without him, I'm not sure we'd be half as successful. He's been pivotal for our biggest campaigns, and he's one of the sharpest minds I've ever worked with." The room went silent. Not a word. Not a chuckle. Not a single smirk. Just wide eyes and tight jaws. Then David added, "He doesn't just work online. He leads a team. He delivers results worth millions every year. We wouldn't be where we are today if it weren't for him. Frankly, I consider him more of a partner than an employee." I glanced around. Uncle Mark was pale. Kelly was suddenly very interested in the drink she was holding. Aunt Sarah was looking down, brushing invisible dust off her dress. In that moment, every doubt, every slight remark, every awkward smile came rushing back to me. But this time, instead of brushing it off, I felt a quiet sense of pride. Not because David was there to validate me. Not because my family suddenly got it. But because I knew, regardless of their understanding or approval, I had built a path that was worth walking. The rest of the evening felt different. Suddenly, people asked questions that weren't meant to tease. Suddenly, no one called it a side hustle anymore. Suddenly, the questions weren't about why I hadn't chosen a better path but about how I got here. I smiled, answered as openly as I could, and watched as the conversation shifted. Not because I wanted their admiration. Not because I needed their applause. But because for the first time in years, I felt like I could just be myself in that room. As the night came to a close, David shook my hand and smiled. "Proud of you," he said quietly. "Keep doing what you're doing. You're making a difference." After he left, I stood in the quiet living room. The laughter was gone. The questions had stopped. The jabs, the smirks, all of it felt like a faint echo. I don't hold any anger toward my family. Not anymore. They're a product of their time, their struggles, and their understanding. But I walked away knowing one thing: the measure of a person's worth isn't in their title, their degree, or their paycheck. It's in their grit. Their resilience. Their ability to stand tall when the world, or their own family, tries to make them small. That night, I promised myself I would never forget that. Never forget the path I had walked, the lessons I had learned, and the quiet strength it takes to keep going when no one else can see your worth. Not until, one day, it shines too bright for anyone to ignore.